Good morning. Welcome. I call to order the November 21st, 2023 meeting of the Saline County Board of Commissioners. I'd ask that the clerk please call the roll.
Commissioner Shadwick.
Here.
Commissioner Vidrickson.
Here.
Commissioner Sparks.
Here.
Commissioner Weiss.
Here.
Commissioner Hay.
Here.
I ask that you please stand and join me in a flag salute followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We move to the public forum portion of our meeting where citizens may speak on county government, usually limited to 3 minutes and pertaining to items that are not on today's agenda.
Norman and Salina, commercials on the radio. You're giving an employee a $2,500 employment bonus. You're giving them a $2,500 tool allowance. That's $5,000 a year. When it stops, after they're hooked, they're going to have withdrawal symptoms. Why are you doing this? Because after 1 year, you cut it off. You're cutting off. That's withdrawal symptoms. That's a big hit, $5,000 a year. So you need to change that. That's another issue. That's baiting and switching. This is an issue with the Fish and Game Department. You're entrapping these employees. It's entrapment. I've talked with the state legislator about it. It crosses over. Veiled threats have been made against state employees when you're doing this. That's on the radio. It's in the news. So these threats were made against the state officials in public.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the commission? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for approval of today's consent agenda. The consent agenda is fairly lengthy and consists of approval of tax roll adjustments, approval of accounts payable, approval of the public forum agenda, approval of payroll, approval of the county commission minutes for November 7th, 2023, approval of county commission minutes for November 13th, 2023, approval of county commission minutes for November 14th, 2023, approval of the 10/1/2023 health plan amendment 02 and dental plan amendment of 04, and rural fire district number 5, the community leasing partners contract for approved squad unit purchase. And last but not least, the 2023 general election certification. Are there any commissioners who wish to pull anything from the agenda? And if not, I would take a motion for approval.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve today's consent agenda. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move into today's action items. Item number 1.
SCBA bottles for Rural Fire District Number 1 with Michelle Wise, Emergency Management Director.
Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Commission. I am here on behalf of Fire District 1 to request the purchase of 20 SCBA bottles from Ed Feld Equipment for $30,142.80 to replace the bottles that have reached end of life. We did reach out and we did try to seek grant funds to fill this request, but unfortunately, with the sheer number of requests that went in through that grant, this was not something that was approved. So now they will be using their special equipment line item to pay for this. They did go out to bid and they did receive 2, but this was a similar vendor that one of the other fire districts have gone with as well. So that is all. Any questions?
I just got one. Is the bottles that we've got now, are they worth anything? Can they be sold, or can they be traded in, or?
Not once they've reached end of life.
Okay, thank you.
Are we replacing 20 bottles now? Is that what we have, and we're replacing 20 bottles?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
My hope is in the future, maybe we can stagger the replacement cycles, so we're not doing all 20 at once. Maybe we can do 5 at a time, but that's something that we'll discuss in the next budget process for that fire district.
Well, the good news is that it's $30,000 out of a $216,000 line item fund that has that
Right.
much money available. So what is that? Less than 10%. So anybody else? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mr. Chair, I make motion we approve RFA 2023-2015 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 2023-215 as presented. Further comments? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? What did I hear? Jim?
That was Jim saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Item number 2.
Reallocation of ARPA funds with Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator.
Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Welcome to the continuing saga of how to spend $10.5 million. And how to spend that money in ways that make meaningful impact in the community and do it on a tight time frame. So, as you know, we've been talking for more than 2 years now about the funds we receive from the federal government under the American Rescue Plan Act. And we have allocated them, almost all of those funds to various things. We're now in the stage where people are actually spending the money, and we are getting back what I will characterize as dribs and drabs. We have several projects that have between $6,000 up to $46,000 that they're returning to us for a total of $86,811. However, we've got 2 other projects that need additional funding in the amount of $75,636. So just a little bit of funding left over, about $11,175. However, there are 2 pretty significant projects hanging out there that have not progressed, and we have a strong suspicion that are not going to progress in the amount of $1.4 million. The first of those is money that we have set aside to partner with the City of Saline to bring multifamily housing development into the community. The city has selected a developer for that. It does not appear at this time that they're going to move forward with a location that would be suitable for us to spend our $1 million. So we have the potential for reallocating that $1 million to something else. We will have an item actually before the commission next Tuesday on the city's, what they are moving forward with. We've been reserving $400,000 for the Saline Airport Authority for maintenance hub. We've been informed that the maintenance hub is not going to move forward, but there is the potential that Ms. Tim Rogers, Executive Director of the Saline Airport Authority, would like to come before the commission and talk about using that as an air service incentive instead. He was planning on being here next Tuesday. That has now been shifted, and that he will be in front of the commission on December 12th. So there's $1.4 million sort of up in the air. Staff's recommendation today is that we go ahead and start planning for alternate uses for at least the first $1 million of that. I think it's pretty unlikely that the city's developer will come forward with a plan, and that even if they do, I'm not sure, based on the timelines that they've sort of operated under so far, that they will be able to actually get the money under contract by December 31st of 2024, which is when we have to have all the funding obligated. So Earlier this year, on July 11th, your commission approved a backup list of projects that could be funded with any funds that were not spent for their original purpose. The list was amended on September 12th to include some road projects as well. So the next 3 projects on that list would be a grant program for fire district facilities for $500,000, the realignment of the intersection at Stimmel and Old 40 for $175,000, and then bridge replacement and channel improvements on Simpson Road between Campbell and Schipple in the amount of $400,000. That would take $1,075,000, which is just a little bit over what we would have available, assuming that $1 million in housing does not come to fruition. If air service also does not happen, the next 2 projects on the list would be the remodeling for Saline Grace, and then we would look at a housing grant program for local universities. That's all in accordance with your prior direction, and so staff today recommends proceeding with development of the Fire District Grant Program and the surface transportation projects, as well as reallocating those small amounts for the Farm Bureau project and the Reardon and Holmes intersection project. Certainly open to other direction. One of the questions in particular that has come up is whether the fire district grant program should be limited specifically to facilities or whether it should also include capital equipment. I think my understanding is there are probably 5 fire districts that have a building project in mind, but one might want to do some apparatus instead of a building project because they feel like their buildings are in pretty good shape. And then, of course, any other thoughts that the commission has about order of projects, et cetera. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions, take direction from the commission.
I'm curious, on the fire department portion of it, is it feasible to go to give some sort of a directive to each fire department and ask them what they would like to spend $200,000, whatever the amount, dividing among the, what is there, 6 of them, dividing those and ask them what they want to do with the money rather than us tell them what to do with the money? Is that feasible? Makes sense?
Well, yes, that's what we would be doing. We would have them propose a use to us. The question is whether we want to restrict those uses just to facilities or whether we'd be okay if they did other things beyond the facilities.
Well, that's where I probably would say that they're better knowledgeable of what they need rather than us tell them what they can use it for. I mean, I want to hear what they want to use it for and then say, yes, we can do that or no, we can't, rather than just give them a list of here's what you can use it for. I don't want to do that. The other thing that troubles me a little bit is, and it's not a lot of money, but this intersection at Stimmel and Old 40, I don't know how in the world they're going to redo that one when it's the same thing on both sides of that house. The curve is there. You're going to have to buy property to realign that intersection. To the best of my knowledge, it's a crummy intersection. There's no doubt about it, but I don't know of any accidents that have happened there in the last 30 or 40 years. Perhaps there has been, but nothing significant. But I just don't see how we can do that without spending a lot of money needlessly, in my opinion.
So that is one of the 3 projects that was proposed by the county engineer, and he selected those projects. All 3 of those projects have been on our sort of wish list for a number of years. But these are 3 projects that we did not have an identified funding source for that he thought could be done by the end of 2024. So that's why those projects were selected. I believe that, yes, my understanding of that project is it would move the road to the other side of that house, that it would acquire some new right-of-way and actually move the road so that the curve was completely different.
And you're going to have the same, if you move it to the west of that house, you're going to have the same situation only on the other side of the house. It's going to be exactly the same type of an intersection. It's going to be blind coming from the east instead of blind coming from the west.
Well, I mean, certainly, if the commission doesn't want to do that one, we could strike that one off the list and move Salina Grace up higher and go from there.
I don't know about the commission, but I know that one commissioner that doesn't want to do that. That's for certain. The other thing that I'm wondering about is the building that we have rented over here on 10th Street. That's going to need significant renovation, I think. Is that something can we set some of this money aside for that?
Yes. I'm not sure what you're thinking in terms of significant renovation. I mean, it's a rented building, and so I would advise against spending a lot of money on it until we have a firmer plan for what we would like to do with it long term, and if we even want to keep it. But I mean, right now it's just being used for storage, so the configuration is fine as it is. It's set up with offices and cubicles, so I think I don't see a lot of. I mean, certainly if we wanted to put, you know, 50,000 or something aside for that building, but I wouldn't put, you know, $1 million.
Well, I understand that too,
yeah.
but I do need that, or understand that I can't imagine that it's just we move in, whether it be the tag department or the clerk or whoever. If we just move them over there and it's all set up and ready to go, it's not going to happen. That's why I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's probably based in experience, Commissioner,
Right.
in terms of what we've gone through the last couple of years. So, yeah, I mean, if the commission wished to add something like that to the list, and just
Well,
let me
that's what
know
makes
where
me
on the
think-
list you want it to be.
I'd like to
Makes me
see
think of it.
I'd like to see Justin come back with
I
us. No, go ahead, huh?
I just want to finish this, but that's what makes me think of it in this manner that I'm doing so, is that what we have experienced on the island over here and the money that we continually have to spend because we've moved offices in there, even though they're temporary. The difference being that we own that building versus
Right.
the rental on the other buildings. So, excuse me, Commissioner, go ahead.
I'd like to see Justin come back maybe and talk to us a little bit, because it was about a year ago we set this priorities, and maybe it's changed since then. I would like to see maybe some discussion with him about Schilling Road near the new housing project that is kind of a problem, and I'm not so sure we even brought that up a year ago with the dust and the.
Isn't that a city?
It's
No, you're talking about the one on East. Gotcha.
It should be a city because they own property on both sides, but
Well, the county commission certainly agrees with that. That's for sure. Obviously, the city doesn't necessarily. Okay, what else,
And
guys?
I would just like to comment on that, and thank you for bringing that up, because it's like, I look at it as that if we got issues with the roofs at the engineer's office out there and the funding that we need out there, it's like, if I was them, and even looking at across the street here where we need a new roof on the
island.
island. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at, wouldn't we be better off money spending these funds for fixing our buildings that we have versus going out and playing with a intersection? If we could do that here. But that's where because some of these things come up after we already talked about this here. I mean, the roof on this island and some of these other projects have come up since we've come up, and now these monies we're looking at reallocating it. I'd think that other issues, but okay.
So I will say, in terms of the roof on the island, that is already spent, and that project's complete, and I think we've got the check. So, I mean, Hannah will be in a little bit giving you an update on where we are with the CIP. That all having been said, I certainly am very heartened to hear the commission talk about investing some of this funding in county facilities. I mean, we certainly have needs there that we could do. I'm thinking in particular, one of the things that we had set aside funding in the CIP for 2024 was the facility study with the city. if we paid that out of excess ARPA funding instead of out of our CIP, that saves us money, long term that we have to do real improvements. So, I mean, I like the direction of where this is going.
Tell me when we started making this list. It was over a year ago, wasn't it? Was it a year and a half ago, maybe?
The ARPA list?
Yeah, I mean, when we were starting to prioritize, because I remember down at the bottom where I was like, well, nobody there's going to get the money anyway, so we were
Yeah, so the
needs discussion
the existing priorities are really 2 years old. It was August 31st of 21 when we adopted the original plan.
Okay.
But the backup list is really just from July of this year is when we came back and did that.
Yeah, I would like at some point, whether it's a conceptual discussion or whether it happens right now or whether it happens whenever, I'd like to start rethinking that list.
Okay.
That brings up a good point, Monty. There's a guy on the radio that tells you how to spend your money when you're in debt and so on and so forth. And he says, pay off your debts from smallest to biggest. We're attacking this from, it seems to me like we attack it from the largest to the smallest. And maybe, some of those smaller projects are really important to certain departments. And maybe we should, like Monty says, just take another look at that thing, and maybe we can take care of several items at the bottom of the list as opposed to one large one at the top. And there's one here that's troubling me, and there's nobody that's a bigger proponent of the airport authority than I am. But, here we go, looking at another $400,000 for consideration of new air service. And we've been down that road, and that money is, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
I'm just a little apprehensive to do that again. Was spending this much money for those things.
Yes, I've expressed to Tim Rogers in no uncertain terms that I'm not happy about the fact that this is the third time that we've been down this road, and that we need some guarantees that if we approve this, that the money actually gets out the door. Because although December 31st of 2024 is more than a year away, it's 13 months away, it is in government time, that is the blink of an eye. So, I mean, we really need plans, and concrete plans sooner rather than later. So, yeah, I don't want to foreclose, consideration of that request. He'll be back, on December 12th with more information about it, but I share that concern.
Well, hand me $400,000 and I'll give you Houston Air Service. I'm giving it to them. But hand me $400,000 so we can go see what we can find. I'm just, like I said, we've been down that road.
I agree with the chair because, I looked at that $400,000 when we were using it for that maintenance hub. That maintenance hub was going to bring a lot of stuff into Saline, but I really have a hard time also looking at $400,000 for incentives. There ain't very many places you can go and get almost $500,000 for just incentives on something. If it was more concrete, into something like that maintenance hub, I'd be all over it because, like I said, it's bringing more economic value to Saline, but in Saline County. But just to give $400,000 for incentives, I'm just not there. The other question I had also was, how are you going to do this with the fire districts? Are they going to submit something and then come in, and then have you decided, or have we decided that we're going to, if we got 6 fire districts, we're going to split that up, and I think that's what, $85,000 a piece, and let them.
I certainly wouldn't do it that way.
Okay.
All the fire districts do not have the same population, the same assessed valuation.
That's why I asked.
So, no, what what I would do, that I've characterized it as a grant program. I'm not sure iParametrics, our consultants, would see it as a grant program because the fire districts are in our financial system, so it's really just an internal transfer in terms of the bookkeeping. But I see it as a grant program because I would like to have them submit something by a deadline and have those reviewed by a committee, just as we have with the nonprofits, the Safer and Healthier, the water districts, et cetera, because I think, you know, they all have ideas, and they're probably all good ideas, but I suspect that their ideas are going to add up to more than $500,000, and I also suspect that not all their ideas are going to be capable of being accomplished in 13 months. And so that's why I would think we would want to run it that way.
That sounds like a good plan.
Well, I want to go back to Monty's comment, and if I'm reading it correctly, that is the direction that we provide you with is that we would like to see this list be brought back before us on the allocation of these funds and maybe reprioritize that, and we'd like to do that sooner than later.
Yeah, I've got time. I mean, what if it, you know, whenever it's a special thing or whatever. Yeah, I can't even remember what Saline Grace wanted. I apologize, but that's a long time ago, and I'd like to see that again.
It's for the remodeling of
Remodeling.
their new space on Broadway.
And I'm just using them as an example. I think that enough time's gone by that I have forgotten some things.
No, that's certainly makes sense. Yeah, it was sort of theoretical when we talked about it, and now it's becoming much more concrete. So as a way to perhaps wrap this up, if the commission is amenable to the funding for the Farm Bureau and the Reardon and Holmes, and then just having staff proceed with the grants for the fire districts at this point, and then everything else we could bring back at a later date.
You cut out there on me a little bit, hearing aids. The Farm Bureau and the tire situation, we're going to approve that. And what was the next item that you said?
The additional funding for the Reardon and Holmes intersection, that's related to drainage that was not anticipated when Justin brought the program originally. So needs additional funding there.
And we can get that done by next year. That's a pretty quick project. Okay.
Those the
Mr.
type of.
Chair, excuse me if I might, I don't want to muddy the waters, but I know that our grants to the water districts were set forth. There were 10 grants of $50,000, if I remember right. That was done on estimates of project costs. A lot of those projects went well over budget, putting fiscal restraints on those water districts, which touch each one of our districts. Is it possible, with these projects already in work, that we could again open them up to adjust the amounts that were spent to help with the burden of the costs of these projects that went well over budget? This wouldn't be, all these projects would take place within the time frame because they're ongoing now, but it would lessen the burden of costs to these different water districts or projects that went well over budget. Is that a possibility?
Certainly, it's a possibility. I mean, that helping out water infrastructure was one of the things that was specifically called out in federal legislation. So that's why that was one of the first projects that we did. And yes, I recognize there are some of those that have gone over budget. There are some of them that have been completed. So I guess I would have two concerns, not barriers, but concerns about that. One being just making sure that we were doing it in a way that was sort of fair to everybody, because some people have already done their projects and some people are still in the middle of things. And then the second one being timeliness. those water projects have really taken. It's great that we did them very early on in the process because with construction these days, and particularly anything involving mechanical, electrical components, those things are just taking a long time. So I would want to make sure that whatever we did with the water districts was not additive in terms of time. But barring those two concerns, yes, I think we could certainly put additional funding to that if there's a need to do so.
Well, I understand the timing of it, but it seems like with projects that are already in motion, the time frame would be shortened quite a bit versus a new project that has to be completed. And to hang that 400,000 out for airport authority for something that might happen, and if it doesn't, then we have to have a quick turnaround to make sure we can utilize that 400,000 on other projects.
Okay, with all of that having been said, I'm looking at this alternatives for action. There's alternative 1, alternative 2, and alternative 3.
Yeah, so I think maybe it would be alternative 1, but with scratching the last phrase. Just reallocate the 3036 for the Farm Bureau Tire Project and 72600 for Reardon and Holmes Intersection Project, and authorize staff to proceed with developing guidelines for grants to fire districts, period. And then we'll bring back the others.
So
That's
fine.
That is where my thinking is headed, to do that. And I was trying to find that specific one in the other two, and I didn't see it, so.
That being said, I move that we approve RFA 2023-2019 as presented by the county administrator.
Second.
And that would make sure that we delete the making plans
Right.
for the 2 other surface transportation projects.
Did you take public?
Okay. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for further action. And it's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, we'll move into our informational items. Item number 1.
Community Legislative Platform for 2024 with Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator.
Good morning again, Commission. So this is really just for me to introduce Renee Dexler, President and CEO of the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce, and Eric Sexton with Folston Siefken, who are here to talk about the legislative platform. This is something we have done for a number of years, but this is the second year of doing it in this more robust format. So, Renee?
Good morning, Ms. Dexler.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commission. Thanks for having us here this morning. As Philip said, we have the 2024 legislative agenda in front of you. This is a draft version of it, although I don't see much changing from this other than maybe some formatting. This is the agenda that we put in front of our state delegation and our federal delegation every December before they go into session, just to let them know what our priorities as a community are. This is also what we utilize, specifically those funding requests at the very beginning of the document, both the state and federal, that we utilize not only to talk to our legislators, but the whole of the legislation, both state and federal, in trying to get grant monies or allocated monies to us. So I'm not going to read it all to you, but I certainly would be happy to stand for any questions. Magnolia Road continues to be a large priority for us. Holmes Road improvements and that connection to housing development, as well as the airport North Ramp development that creates a sort of 3-point maintenance repair an overhaul between Topeka, Wichita, and Salina. Salina being the paint sort of piece of that space. River renovation project continues to be a priority, and then those policy priorities in the back of the agenda are all sort of our community partners coming together and just kind of stating what's important to us as a community. And so with that, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Well, my observation is, I guess, this is so much more important if you look at it from a legislative a commission standpoint, much more important to the city than it is to the county itself, although we are part of the deal.
Sure.
So I'm supportive of it. So, I mean, as an example, the Magnolia Road project, that's a city road now. That's a city, so
Sure.
we're going to pony up money. So where is the number that this is going to cost the county? Don't we all have a stake in this?
Oh, sure. So for next year, we will have what looks like will be 7 partners for a total of $63,000, so $9,000 annually per partner.
And are those 7 people committed?
Yes, they are.
I didn't think I heard that last night in the city meeting. I thought there was one that was still in limbo. Maybe
Not that
I
I'm aware of.
misunderstood.
We added one, and they are committed. but
And they are committed?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've read this. I'm aware of it. I know that in listening to the city last night, there were some points in that they were a little skeptical of, mainly the Medicaid expansion. And I'll speak for myself, but I certainly think that is a very important part, particularly Salina being the leading city for western Kansas. And I think it's a big deal.
Sure.
And I truly, personally support it. So, and I don't see how we can say we're going to support this legislative agenda, but take that out. I don't see how we can do that. So I, for one, am in favor of this legislative agenda. And with that, I will yield to any other commissioner who has a comment or a question.
I'm very supportive. I think the Magnolia Road thing is important to the city and the county. I mean, it just is what it is. I still don't understand how that wasn't put on. How did the money from the $1.9 trillion infrastructure plan that was passed last year, where did that money go, and why? That should have been a high priority for that.
I'll look to Philip.
It has been. So most of that money, you're speaking about the bipartisan infrastructure law that passed through Congress. Most of that money comes in 2 ways. So about 60% of it is what I'll call block granted to the states. So it ended up at KDOT. And then the other 40% is nationally competitive programs. And so the city, and we've been cooperating with them, but the city in particular has taken the lead on applying for both KDOT funds, the augmented funds, and also trying to find an appropriate federal program where we would be competitive. The city manager and I had a conversation with the Secretary of Transportation earlier this year when he was in Salina, facilitated by Mr. Sexton. Appreciate that opportunity. So KDOT is well aware of it, and we think there will be some of that $1.9 trillion will make its way to Magnolia. It just hasn't yet.
Okay. Thanks for the update. I did not know that, so that's good.
Well, if I could, I'm going to put you on the spot, Mr. Sexton. Yes. We set up here as the board and commission. We okayed the hiring of you and your firm to represent us in Topeka, but we've never really heard from you directly. So, can you tell us a little bit like what you've got up your sleeve that's going to help Saline County?
Well, yes. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Eric Sexton. Thank you for having your confidence in us being a part of their community's agenda. I work for Folston Siefken at a little short commercial. We're the largest Kansas-based law firm, and we have a government affairs practice. We're a full-service business law firm. And a little bit about myself, for some of you that may not know who I am. Again, my name is Eric Sexton. I grew up in Halstead, Kansas, small town just north and west of Wichita, Kansas. And I spent 26 years at Wichita State University in a variety of different roles, one of which was doing government affairs, doing this business for Wichita State University. I did that for 18 years. And then now, and then I had a promotion, I think it was a promotion, became the director of athletics, ran our $27 million business for athletics, and then retired. And then Folston picked me up to get back into the government relations business. I've been in the Capitol doing this kind of work for 22 sessions now. And then back to, as the chairman asked, what do we do is, this community has so many great things going on. All of the economic development and activities that have gone on have happened because of this community coming together and focusing on, as Commissioner Hay talked about, it's the economic development efforts that are important. But one of the things that was a challenge was that, or could have been perceived as a challenge, is that it was relying on the Renees, the Phils that have full-time jobs to work with our local legislators from our area as well as the rest of the legislature to continue to talk about the important issues. So I'm boots on the ground. I'm in the Capitol every day monitoring the issues and looking for those targets of opportunity. For example, being able to connect with the Secretary of Transportation so that the city manager and county administrator have an opportunity to have a one-on-one interaction on behalf of our community to do those kinds of things. So what I'm there is boots on the ground every day in the Capitol, taking this document here as our agenda for Saline County and for the area to say what's important to us, because many other communities don't do that. They have what I would, and again, it'll be taped and somebody will ream a hot poker up, you know what, for saying this, but many of them have kind of what I would call, like you go to the fair, the whack-a-mole. This pops up, this pops up, this pops up. We take this, and this is sort of the Bible for this community. That doesn't mean we're not reactive to other opportunities. Again, I'm there to help facilitate and work with our 7 local partners relative to what's important for our community. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Chairman, but that's what, and other commissioners, I'd be happy to stand for any questions, but that's what I've done the last 2 years, working directly with our local legislators as well as the rest of the legislature on behalf of Saline County. We also have other clients that we do this work for, but we focus on a very narrow window of clients so that we can give one-on-one experience and one-on-one representation on behalf of their interests that don't conflict with each other.
Well, it reaffirms my thinking, and that is it makes a whole lot of sense to have one person rather than Phil going off to Topeka and Mike Scragg goes to Topeka and Tim Rogers goes to Topeka, Renee Duxler goes to Topeka, all of them for a similar item, but they go on their own. And this way we have a representative for the entire community doing this, and it costs us probably in the long run a lot less money to do it that way. So
and I appreciate that. And the one thing I would add, though, is they are all at my text, and they will admit to that, because there are times periodically that as a community, last session, as we worked to attract Pure Imagination, I'll use that as an example, the company that moved from California to come to Saline County to be housed out at the Airport Authority because of the synergies that were happening with General Atomics and the Salina, K-State Salina efforts for them. But there was periodically, and I have a little smile on my face, is that needed everybody in the Capitol. They get a text message at a appropriate time and said, we have to be here as a community, and that was meaningful, but you wouldn't know that, as you said, Mr. Chairman, that if it's 1 or 2 at the time, you're not at the right time, right place to be able to have those potentially impactful conversations.
Well, if memory serves me correctly, Mr. Sexton, you were the athletic director when Wichita State went to the Final Four a few years ago. We're expecting the same thing here in Salina, that you will take us to the big dance, okay?
Well, it would be irresponsible not to point that out.
Deliver us to the promised land, please.
We'll do our very best, and it's great to have a great community and great commissioners and other great community partners, because it does make it easier to lean into the best opportunity for success. So thank you.
You know,
right.
one question I got before you do.
Yes, sir.
You know, we talked earlier, you know, the hot button still, and that's what the chairman brought up, is Medicaid expansion.
Yes, sir.
I've gone through the documents. You held up the documents. You said this is what is important to us. But I think what is important to the citizens of Salina and the citizens of Saline County is something to do with Medicaid expansion. Now, we've got a KAC conference coming up here in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be leaning on Mike Taylor to find out what his views are and what we can do. I know the legislature does not support I mean, they've been really clear about they don't even want to take it up right now or do anything. But that is a really hot button in a lot of communities, is that Medicaid expansion. And I think that needs to be on our agenda, and it needs to be pushed as much as possible.
Well, I appreciate you pointing that out, and we will put that into the mix. As you may or may not have known, that Renee, at the president of the chamber, helped facilitate a community discussion with it happened to be the governor came in to talk about that very topic, and we had a business member of the chamber, plus a number of other community folks, to have that conversation in our community. And so that is going to, as you said, it's going to be a hot button topic that we will be paying close attention to.
All right, well, thanks so much for your input and answer to the questions, so. Go ahead.
I just have a quick question here. Renee, in one of our issues here, and I still look at the issues and the problems, is that with the housing and bringing people into the Salina market to help fill all of the great things that all of the committees and everybody has done to bring new jobs into Saline County and Salina. And is there anything really looking down the road for childcare and the housing arena?
I'm happy to answer that.
Yes.
So we do have things moving in terms of housing. Certainly the development that's going to be happening out at Menards, the subdivisions that are happening, we continue to pay attention to those. United Way has really taken the lead on the child care initiative and are working with our local employers to kind of build that fund to look at wages. They are writing another grant to the Children's Cabinet, I believe, here in December that will continue to raise funds. So we feel really strongly that housing and child care have momentum. We certainly want to stay with those and continue to stress their importance, but we do have things that are in motion. If this commission remembers, you did approve some money for us to work on a community strategic plan together, and we had our first meeting on October 20th and had a conversation and really sort of decided that the piece that maybe the chamber wanted to focus on along with our partners was that sort of recruitment and retention piece in terms of marketing to people, to let them know that Salina has jobs, sort of, as Imagine Salina has been doing, but what does that look like going forward? So that we are making sure we're telling our story about who Salina is, what we have to offer, the jobs, the quality of life, the education experiences. And so that's all in conversation right now, but certainly all of those, the workforce development, the housing, and the child care, continue to be very high priorities for us as we move forward.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thanks again. Thanks for coming and enlightening us. Let's move to item number 2.
Human Resources Quarterly Update with Marilyn Leamer, Human Resources Director.
Good morning, Marilyn.
Good morning, Commissioners. This report is mid-August to mid-November. During this time, we've had 16 new hires. We also processed 21 new election workers. Transferred and promotions within the county, we had 13 folks moved to different positions, 9 that are no longer employed. Our miscellaneous activities that have occurred over this time frame is we did have our open enrollment for our insurance, and then the related compliance reporting that we needed to do for that. We also completed the CAPERS optional life insurance open enrollment that occurred in September with coverage to begin in January. We did complete a successful safety-themed in-service training day in October. We are receiving assistance from the Arnold Group in place of WSU for our position classifications and reclassifications. We did find out that WSU is no longer equipped due to some staffing changes, so the Arnold Group is helping us through that right now. We are continuing doing our testing and transition from Civic HR to Criterion for our applicant tracking system, and we're also working with IT to improve the careers page. So that needs to be completed by September of 2024, so we do have a little time for that transition. We also opened the United Way campaign for our employees. Upcoming plans, we plan to do a December insurance premium holiday for employees. We haven't been able to do that for a year or two. This is because we are a self-insured plan. We've had a good year that resulted in a flat renewal when we renewed in October, so that was really good news to bring to employees. But the monies that go into our trust fund, if they get up there a little ways, that's an opportunity for us to provide a premium holiday. So we plan on doing the employee premium holiday in December, and then the employer piece will give some relief to that in January. The amounts for that is it gives about $51,000 worth of relief to employees, and then on the employer side, a little over $281,000. We will be having some policy and procedure updates that will be due to the new work agreement that the Commission approved earlier this year for 2024. Also, we're going to be participating in the creation of a formal county-wide safety committee. We're just trying to keep the momentum going with the safety theme that we had for in-service. Currently requesting volunteers for our 2 employee councils. One's called the Employee Management Partnership, and then the other one is our Employee Council. So we've just sent out the email to employees to volunteer for that. Work on filling vacant positions. Currently, we're looking for 7 corrections officers, but we do have 5 candidates that are currently in the process of being hired. We have a new corrections corporal position that was approved for 2024, so we are accepting in-house applications for that. The Commission also approved 3 additional booking officers. We're calling those civilian specialists now, so we are recruiting for that. Also doing a search for a facility and maintenance assistant and assistant manager for the Sheriff's Office, one of those being a new position the Commissioners approved for 2024. Record specialist, part-time health department administrative assistant, home health RN, truck driver, heavy equipment operator, rural patrol, engineer technicians, 2 of those, assistant attorney, looking for 3 of those, 1 for a vacancy, and then the 2 that were approved for 2024, and then also a paralegal. As far as the budget update, we ended the plan year at the end of September at 82% of expenses to funding ratio, so that, as I mentioned earlier, resulted in that flat renewal. The dental plan ended at 92% of the funding of the expenses to funding, and that one was also a flat renewal as well. And as far as the HR budget, we are at 86% of used. We are in line with the historical averages. We do have some outstanding expenses coming in from our in-service training day, so that'll eat up just a little bit of that. And that's all I have available for questions.
Marilyn, you have a unique way of putting a lot into a short period of time, and we appreciate that. I do have a question for you. This isn't a criticism, but it's a question. When you say you've received assistance from the Arnold Group for classification, why can't we do that in-house
I like
ourselves?
to have an external individual to do that, somebody that's unbiased, that they're going to take a look at that. I mean, I can, help build the job descriptions and provide that, but, and if they have questions on how I feel it might fit within the internal equity, I just prefer to have that external expertise that's unbiased to set grade classifications.
When you say unbiased, I mean, because my way of thinking would have been that if you had yourself and the department head, it can certainly tell you what needs to be above and how they need to be classified, I would have thought. That's just,
We do provide that input, but, you know, I think a department head's going to be probably more favorable wanting to increase salaries for their department, which I think that's human nature. I think this just allows a little bit more, like I said, unbiased.
okay. Anybody else have anything?
Yes, quick question. And, Mr. Chair, thank you. In regards to that Arnold Group and the Wichita State, had we already paid funds to Wichita State for any of these help that you was going to?
We did the classification and compensation study for those, and they did complete that.
Okay.
This is just for some things moving forward. Sometimes positions evolve a little bit, and we want them reviewed to see if any duties added or taken away might make a difference in a wage. So they had some staffing changes. The main primary contact we had with WSU, she did leave, and they just weren't equipped to help us right away, which we had some needs at the time.
Okay. I just didn't know if that was part of our first agreement with Wichita State, that they would continue for a year or whatever to help this program, and now that they're out of it, that we're paying again to get the same result, but that's not it.
We're not doing the whole
No,
compensation.
but even
and, yeah,
as a
they're just
continual help.
helping us through, getting
Okay.
through, since they were no longer able to help us.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Marilyn.
All right, thanks.
We'll move to item number 3, please.
Capital Improvement Plan update with Hannah Bett, Deputy County Administrator.
Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning, Commissioners. So I guess this is perfect timing based off of the discussion that you had previously on the ARPA funding to talk about our capital improvement plan and where we're at, the projects that are underway, what's planned for the next coming years, and then also some opportunities that are in front of us. So back on July 11th, the Commission, as part of the budget process, reviewed the projects that were requested for years 2024 through 2028. And those were listed and approved. We have got current projects that are underway and then projects that are slated to begin in 2024. So as it sits now, we have got just a little over $2.1 million worth of projects that are underway or in development, just in the planning stages. And then we've got about $3.5 million in projects that have already been identified for years 2024 through 2028. So I listed out those projects on your information sheet, so if you have any particular project or questions about any of those projects, just let me know. I'd be happy to cover those. So as it sits, where we are at now, as of the 6th of November, the balance in the CIP fund was $5.8 million. We have got 2 transfers that are scheduled, totaling $927,202. And where that money comes from is we have got $867,000 from ARPA to transfer for the courtroom project. And then we've got $59,404 that is scheduled to be transferred from the general fund into CIP. And then we also have an audit that will be occurring. Typically, after our audit, any access funds can be transferred into CIP, but that number is just not known yet, not until we actually have the official audit, know how much money is available to be transferred. But just to kind of give you a little context, over the past 5 years, the average amount that has been transferred into CIP after the audit is about $1.4 million. So The other question that has the other opportunity that is available is there's $2.8 million that can be transferred into CIP from the jail bond to reimburse CIP for all of the expenditures that took place on the jail project before the bonds were issued. There is sufficient funding in the jail bond to do that, to pay back the county for that, but that is a decision of the commission as to if you wish to do that, and if so, that would be an action that would come back to you in the form of an RFA. So to kind of touch on some of the projects that are either completed, underway, in development in CIP, we've had quite a few challenges that have arisen in the past few years, mainly related to inflation, especially on the expo projects, inflation as well as unexpected projects. The unexpected projects such as the roof replacement on the former juvenile detention facility. So those are just things that have kind of surfaced. Over the last couple of months, we also have been notified of some additional projects that have been identified, but we don't have a funding source for them. The best example I can give you is the roof on the, I guess, soon-to-be now old jail does need attention. We are going to have to make repairs to that, but we do not have a funding source that's been identified. Then we also have the development of the request for proposals for the joint study in cooperation with the City of Saline. That is underway. We do expect that the results that we'll get back from that study is going to identify even more capital projects. So we just kind of anticipate that. But for the purposes today, I just wanted, our CIP fund, it does have a good balance, and it can sustain those projects that have already been identified. I don't know that it'll be able to sustain much of unexpected projects, but we'll certainly make whatever work. So again, I'm happy to discuss any of the projects that we have already identified, and then would also like to have a little bit of discussion on the recapture of that $2.8 million from the jail bond.
How do we do that?
How do we recapture?
Yeah, when you say recapture, I guess I'm not.
So, at the time, remember the mountain of documents for issuing the bonds? So, one of the things that the commission did when you determined to issue bonds after the voters had approved them, you first started by adopting a resolution, and within that resolution, it gives you the ability, there's language that Gilmore and Bell put in that gives you the ability to go back and pay yourselves back for expenses on the jail project that you incurred prior to the issuance of the bonds. So that's really what we're talking about. It was things like buying the land. We bought the land, 6 months before we issued the bonds, more like 8 months before we issued the bonds. We were paying the architect before we got the bond proceeds. So it's those kinds of things. They're directly related to the jail project, so it's part of that $89 million that the voters approved. And what we would do is, as Hannah said, we would bring you an RFA, and then if you approve that, we would just make the transfer from the jail bond fund into the CIP fund, and we've vetted that with both bond counsel and with the auditor, so everybody's aware and kosher with that.
So that money is sitting now in the jail fund. Am I correct?
In the jail bond project fund. So if you will recall, the total project that's authorized is $89,655,000. We issued the first set of bonds We issued the first set of bonds for $74,900,000. They were sold at a premium, so we actually received $81 million in change. That was the amount of money that came in to that fund in the summer of 2021. And to that gets added interest, right? So all the interest on a bond fund has to stay in that bond fund. It cannot go to the general fund. So interest rates have been wonderful between 2021 and now. The treasurer has made far more money than we anticipated on those investments. So there's been, in addition to that 81 million that we received, there's been, I think, close to 2 million in interest over that 2-year period of time that has accumulated. So we're talking really about $83-ish million. About 79 million of that has been checks that have been written to Turner, Trainer, all the various suppliers, etc. There's a little less than 4 million still sitting in that fund. We're getting down to the end here, and so the question arises, do you want to transfer 2.8 million of that back into the CIP so that you would have it to do things such as repair the roof on the old jail?
I think I have followed that with my lack of accounting knowledge. I think I have followed where that money came from, and I'm in favor of recapturing it.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here.
Yep.
So do you need more direction than that?
No, I appreciate that direction. I just, with the projects that we have listed on here, just certainly if you have any questions about them.
So after that 2.8, how much more is left in that fund that's sitting there right now that's going to have to either be done something with, or is there any more than that?
Oh, in the jail project fund? We will zero out the jail project fund by the end of this year. So in addition to that 2.8 million, we're still paying expenses. There's still some change orders coming in for, different things that the sheriff is discovering as they're getting into the building. So it will be fully expended.
But it won't exceed taking that 2.8 out.
It will exceed, but it won't exceed the $89,655,000 that the voters approved. The voters approved $89,655,000. We're going to come in under that. We're going to come in above the 83 million-ish that's in that particular fund. That difference is coming from the sales tax fund, and you all approved that earlier this year in May. You elected to use that money rather than issuing a second set of bonds. Back in 2021, when we issued the first set of bonds, we said we would come back in 2023 and issue a second set of bonds when we knew the final number. We've determined that the cost of bonds has gone up in the last 2 years, and so it's not worth doing that. We have excess proceeds in the jail sales tax fund that can be used for that purpose. And again, both bond counsel and the auditor are perfectly fine with that.
There's one thing that sticks out to me here, and I'm really happy and proud to have been a small part of it, and that is we've got projects that have been identified in the years 2024 through 2028. We're looking down the road as a group, 5, 6, 8, 10 years down the road. If I recall, 2017 when we were elected, I don't know if we had a 2018 plan.
No.
And, so we're gaining traction in lots of ways. And the big deal right now is our infrastructure buildings wise. We've just got to find more room. either addition to the courthouse or whatever. It's got to be done sometime, and it's not too soon to. And I know we're thinking about that right now. It's in the works. It's got to happen. So, but I am very proud that we're looking out as far as 2028 and beyond as a group, and as an administration too. So thank you.
Okay, I will be back with an RFA.
Okay.
Thank you.
Looks like we can move to item number 4.
Commissioners' comments?
Anyone have anything? We'll move to number 5.
Announcements. And I do have an announcement. So on Friday, November 17th, I was recertified levies from Ottawa County for USD 240. So any residents within that district will be receiving new tax statements for the adjusted levy amounts. So those should be going out today, I believe. It's about 300, a little over 300 tax statements that were affected by those changes.
Okay. Looks like a concept discussion.
Yes, so just wanted to have a conversation. The majority of the commission kind of has a little bit of background. This may be new for Commissioner Hay, but under Kansas law, large users of natural gas, including local governments, are permitted to buy the gas wholesale and then have it delivered by the local utility, in our case, Kansas Gas Service. And so a number of years ago, the building authority elected to do that for this building. And then several of the other county facilities tagged on to that agreement. The building authority subsequently canceled their agreement. This building purchases gas directly from Kansas Gas Service, but the county health department, senior services, and the sheriff's office and jail have continued to be on a wholesale gas contract through a company which has had several different names but is now known as Symmetry. And this all sort of came to a head when Winter Storm Uri came through a couple of years ago and sort of jacked up wholesale gas prices. And so we started unraveling all of this. We ended up entering into a new contract with Symmetry just to sort of get us to the point where we would move to a new jail facility, because that's obviously the largest user of gas among these facilities. So, well, guess what? We're at that point now. So, our current agreement with Symmetry expires December 31st, and they have proposed a new agreement which would go to the new jail. So the current jail we would take off of agreement with Symmetry, put it back on Kansas Natural Gas just to, keep the pipes from freezing. But the new jail would move on to Symmetry. The health department and senior services would continue with them. The good news is, so what we pay to them is based on the current market price for 1,000 BTUs of gas plus a markup, which is, their cost of doing what they do. Of course, we don't know what the market price of gas is going to be, right? That varies from month to month. But the good news is they are proposing in the new contract to shrink the amount that they put on top of that. So their cost is actually going down by, I think it's 3 pennies per 1,000 BTUs, something like that. However, that is for a 1-year agreement, which is what we did just to sort of get us through the end of the jail. Previously, we have done 2-year agreements with them, and they also offer 3-year agreements. That price is lower for a 2-year agreement or a 3-year agreement. So, the discussion that I wanted to have with the commission today is I need to bring you back a new agreement sometime between now and the end of December. And I wanted to know if you're interested in just doing another 1 year to see kind of what our first year of experience is at the new facility, or should we go ahead and do a longer term agreement because we're probably unlikely to move to a different wholesaler anytime soon. So that's sort of the concept discussion, and be open to questions and feedback from the commission about what you would like to see moving forward.
Well, my observation is that, I mean, we have 3 commissioners that are on the City-County Building Authority. And I would like to know why it's advantageous for the City-County Building Authority to go direct with Kansas Gas, and that's not advantageous for the county to do it. Why is it good for one and not good for the other, or vice versa?
So I will say it's typically advantageous. It's typically not advantageous to purchase wholesale for small quantities, and the more gas you buy, the more advantage you gain. And so the jail and sheriff's office certainly uses a lot more gas than the city-county building.
Okay, agreed.
The health department and, I would say senior services is sort of right on the bubble, I guess, of where it would be advantageous or not advantageous. The health department's a little bit higher volume. Why the building authority made the decision to go back to Kansas Gas Service, I can't tell you. That occurred, I think, probably around 5 or 6 years ago, so I'm not sure what the thinking was at that time. But I know the city of Saline has several of their non-city county facilities on Symmetry as well.
Is this the same company that's going through the lawsuits with the state of Kansas and Chris Kobach for the gouging during Uri?
So I don't know if they are one of the companies that the state is suing. You may recall we did think we were overcharged, and they did give us a rebate when we entered back into a new contract with them. And I confirmed that we got that reduction in our bill. So I know that they're a business. They're in it to make a profit. That was an event, but I will say from my perspective, they've been good to work with. Not always timely, but always responsive and
I picked up on another thing that you just said there. So some of our buildings are involved with this contract and some are not? Why wouldn't we have all or none?
Again, it has to do with volume. So, for example, Road and Bridge, there's not a lot of Road and Bridge there's not a lot of.
Right, but why couldn't all of our buildings be included in on one contract? That's not feasible?
So I will say I could investigate that. possibility. There are some rules involved. Kansas Gas Service, or the local utility, has to consent basically to you being on a gas delivery service. So that has to do with volumes and their ability to deliver and so forth. So like for the new jail, we went through a process with Kansas Gas Service to get them to agree that it could be on wholesale. So I can certainly investigate that for whether we could merge all of the contracts, but I know that they're all, of course, on separate meters, and so I assume that that's why the.
Well, it just seems to me like if there's a savings for the jail and under the auspices of the county, that we should be able to put all of our entities under one umbrella, and all of them could go along with the savings all the way. That's just what
I mean. Yeah, no.
Maybe I'm
I'll-
oversimplifying this, but
I will certainly ask that question. I mean, I think that's worth looking into.
okay. Anybody else have anything?
In terms of time frame, is there any sort of preference? 1, 2, 3?
That's up to you. But, I mean, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I would like to see it.
Can't you do
know,
all three? Can't
Pardon?
you, can't he give us option 1, option 2,
Exactly.
option 3?
That's where I was headed. Yeah. Pursue the options of what the savings are from 1 or 2 or 3, and ask them, what those levels are, I guess, and then give us a recommendation.
Okay.
I like the longer terms, getting things taken care of, and it's what's going to go down in price. I don't know, other than gasoline's going down right now, but everything else is going up. I don't see. It looks to me like the longer we can get something locked up, the better off we're probably going to be in this case.
Okay.
Okay?
That's all I had. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Anything? I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for adjournment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.